Welcome to Kicks and Minivans, the podcast for dads, especially the ones that love sneakers. However you're watching and listening, man, we're so glad you're here. Happy 2023. We're into a new year. Hope everyone had a great Christmas with their family and loved ones, man. We enjoyed it. It's the first year that our 2-year-old, our oldest one, really had a sense of what was going on. And so just getting to celebrate with him, it felt like the first time that we were really getting into all the Christmas experience and everything it has to offer us. So, man, our family enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. Well, as we're coming into 2023, in the last episode, you heard my top 5 releases of 2022. I was gonna go with my 5 releases of 2023 I'm super excited for. But I'll be honest, man, as of right now, there's only 2 sneakers in 2023 that I've seen so far that I'm pretty pumped about. And I know we could start seeing some new ones pop up. And so that might change. I'm sure by the end of 2023 there'll be many releases I loved and was excited about, and had my heart broken when I didn't get them on sneakers. But there's 2 sneakers in particular that are on my must-have list in 2023. The first one, as I told you guys before, I am falling in love with the Jordan 3, and so the white cement 3s. I mean, this is a no-brainer, right? This one's probably on everybody's list. Sneakers probably gonna melt down again, probably get left on pending for 71 minutes again. But you know what? I'm preparing for it. I'm praying for it. Maybe not that, but the white cement 3s, man, it's classic. They're beautiful. They're beautiful sneaker, beautiful shoe. Man, I'm super excited for these ones to come out. Really hoping that I can get lucky on sneakers this time. But, we see what happens. The other one of my favorite silhouettes is the Jordan 5. This one isn't on everybody's list. I know some people either love them or hate them. And sometimes they're amazing, sometimes they miss. But the UNC Jordan 5s, man. Ooh, these ones, Jordan 5s are my favorite J's, and the UNC blue, you almost never see the UNC blue go wrong, right? And so this one is up there with the Jordan 3 cement for me. I don't know what else to say. As of the ones that I've seen right now for 2023 that are dropping, these are the 2 that are on my must-have list. What about you, though? I'm excited to hear what y'all are looking forward to, what different ones. If you haven't caught on by now, mostly a Jordan and Dames guy. Those are the 2 things that I really get into, is the J's and the Dames. So what are you looking forward to? Let me know. Would love to hear from y'all too. Well, we into a new year, and I'll be honest, I had a few different ideas of what to talk about on today's episode. And a few scripts written out for it. But I feel like we gotta talk about something else entirely different, because there's this pattern that I'm noticing. As I have conversations with friends, and as my wife has conversations with friends, there's this, I don't even know how to say it, honestly. But it just seems like it's this typical thing for just couples to fight a lot. And not just in a sitcom, but really fight, not fist fighting, but really arguing and fighting and quarreling all the time, unhealthy amounts of times, an unhealthy amount on the daily. And I'm almost interested, if you pulled all the marriages in America, how many would say they fight once a month or once a week or once a day or multiple times a day? I'm really interested to see what the breakdown of that would be. And that just sounds exhausting, bro. That just sounds absolutely exhausting, because life's hard. Parenting is hard. Work is hard. Keeping up with your finances and your fitness is hard. Keeping up with your friends is hard. And we don't even know how to relax, bro. I go to relax, I go hop on the Xbox. I'm playing Call of Duty against kids that play 80 hours a week, and they're smoking me. I ain't getting no kill streaks. I'm on a death streak right now. I spawn and I die. We don't even know how to relax well, because that's stressful to me. But then we come home, and we come to a place that's supposed to, a home is supposed to be the safest place in the world for anybody. For a husband, a wife, a kid, a home should be the safest place in the world. And sadly, it's just not. Because you come home and you're just met with bickering and fighting. And like, if that's the situation that you find yourself in, like, I just want to say I'm sorry. Because it's not supposed to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. And I can sit here and say, like, we've been married 7.5 years now. And, like, honestly, like, I'm not saying that we agree on every single thing in the world, but, like, I would say, like, me and my wife genuinely, like, we don't fight. And that's not, like, not to say we don't disagree. Like, there's a difference. Like, you can disagree on something and talk it out without fighting. Right? And so it's like, depending on how you define fighting, like, I say, like we really don't fight. And it seems like that's a rare, weird thing. Like, that's a weird thing. And don't get me wrong, it's like, it's a regular thing where it's like, we have to talk through something. Like, maybe we didn't see eye to eye, or we had expectations of the other person that, you know, one of us disappointed the other one. And it's like, we got to talk through that. But we talk through that. And it's like, we got this really weird way of fighting. And it's like, yo, like, it would not make for a good sitcom because it's really boring. It takes a long time. And, like, yo, honestly, like, it's weird, but it's like, we, like, whisper to each other. Like, it's like our voices get really low, and it's like, and it takes forever because, like, I'll say something in, like, this soft voice, and it's like, and she'll take, like, 3 or 4 minutes to, like, think about her response, and then she'll say it back, and then I take 3 or 4 minutes to think about my response and say it back. And so it's like this argument where there was, like, 8 minutes of talking took, like, 2 hours. But I think it's a healthy way, and it's a way that works for us, but it's a healthy way to go about it. Because in 7.5 years of marriage, over 10 years of being together, I cannot think of anything that I've said to my wife that I regret saying. And I can't think of anything that she has said to me that she would regret saying. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, all right, you're going to disagree on stuff. You're going to argue about stuff. But the way in which you do it, the way in which you fight, fighting well, fighting fair, has a drastic impact upon your marriage. It has a drastic impact upon your kids. Because it sets the tone of health in your household. How you handle conflict sets the tone of health in your household. And so today, like, I just want to share 3 things that me and my wife do. And this isn't like me as some expert saying, like, this is what you should do when you fight. But it's like, this is what has worked well for us and gotten us to a point where it's like, hey, you know, 10 years of being together, like, neither one of us has said anything that we regret to the other person. You might have to check her on that, but, like, I think she'd agree with me. Like, neither one of us has said anything we regret to the other person. Like, I can't think of anything she said to me that I regret. I'd have to ask her and be like, yo, is there something I said to you that, like, I clearly shouldn't have? But I want to lay out 3 things that I think, like, hey, when you argue, because you're going to have arguments, you're going to have disagreements, you're going to have conflict, but how you handle yourself in the midst of that has profound impact upon your marriage. And so first, this is not typically the first response that people come to, but first is believe the best about the other person. Believe the best about the other person. When you have something that comes up, where you go in your head, like, don't determine the outcome of an argument before you even start the argument. Don't determine the outcome of something before you even have the conversation, because you haven't even heard their side of something, right? And if you approach it thinking like, oh, I know she did that, but you're completely off about something, like, you're not going to get to an actual resolution or something, right? Like, so it's like this. You know, we purchased a minivan, I don't know, like 1.5 years ago now. And then it was somewhere, you know, a couple months ago, I was out and I was cleaning out the minivan. That doesn't happen that often, but, you know, it's a necessity, something that has to happen. And I'm cleaning out the minivan, and, like, deep in between the seat, like, you know, there's, like, that cavern in between, like, the seat and the center console that's just, like, it's just empty, you know? Deep in the trenches of that cavern, I found a driver's license that didn't belong to me and my wife. And that was, like, kind of sketchy. Like, you know, like, lots of flags were going up for me. And it was of some dude that I didn't know, never heard of him, but lived in the city around us. His address was right there on the thing. And so I called my homie, and I'm like, yo, bro, like, I just found a random driver's license in my car. Because I sketched out about it, right? Like, I'm like, like, there's been a lot of car break-ins and stuff in our area, in our town lately. And so, like, I'm just kind of sketched out about it. And, like, the van's parked in the garage. So, it was like, I was really weirded out about it. And, like, his first reaction was like, yo, is this some dude that your wife is seeing? And I'm like, bro, that honestly didn't even come to my mind. That thought was not even something that crossed my mind. Like, I was freaked out about, like, the safety of our family. Like, someone was trying to break into our car and, like, lost his license or something. But, like, that was something that didn't even cross my mind. And then, like, we came to find out later that it's like the dude worked at the dealership where we bought the car. And so, like, he had lost it at some point when he was, like, detailing the car or whatever. But, like, believing, like, if I would have jumped the gun on that and went to my wife and been like, yo, who did, like, who, that could have caused an unnecessary fight, because she was just, like, when I told her about it, like, she was just as freaked out as I was, right? But, like, that's the type of thing where it's like, all right, when you're faced with a potential conflict issue, believing the best of the other person can just cancel out an argument altogether. When you go in believing the other person had the best intentions, and even if it's like they did something specifically that hurt you, impacted you negatively, something like that, like going in and believing the best about them, believing like, all right, they did this hurt me, but they may have had good intentions. Like, let me talk to them and get their point of view and see why they did this thing or why they said that. That can change the whole narrative. It could stop fights before they even happen. The second thing, and I think this is so important, is when you fight, when you argue, fight in order to come to a resolution. Right? Like, when we have conflict, when my wife and I have conflict, like, when we approach something, it's never just a fight. Like, honestly, like, I don't enjoy fighting. I don't enjoy arguing. Like, I don't understand people that do. Like, that's not fun for me. Like, I won't back down from a fight if it needs to happen. I won't back down from an argument, but it's like, I don't enjoy it, right? And so, like, when me and my wife argue about something, when we have conflict about something, we approach it in of like, okay, how can we get onto the same page? Like, that is the goal of all of our arguments, is us getting onto the same page. Because at the end of the day, like, if we can't get onto the same page about something, it doesn't even matter, right? Like, and I can't really think of any argument that we've had where we haven't ended it by getting onto the same page. And maybe that argument took more than one or two conversations, but it's like we did it with the intention of getting onto the same page, of coming to a resolution, whatever that conflict piece was about. Neither one of us want to fight just for the sake of fighting. Like, life is hard enough. Why would I want to be constantly fighting with my best friend? Like, I want to face these challenges that we have shoulder to shoulder, not face to face. Like, I got enough challenges and problems going on in the world. I don't want my wife, like, I want to fight those challenges with my wife. I don't want my wife to be one of those challenges, right? And so we stand shoulder to shoulder on things, and if we're not on the same page, we will talk through it until we get onto the same page. But when we fight in order to come to a resolution. And I think that's honestly, like, that is a word that not even just for your marriage, but for any of your relationships, friendships, coworkers, your kids, like, when you have a conflict, when you have an argument, like, it seems like seems silly and dumb to even say it, but it's like, fight to come to a resolution, right? Like, that's the point of it. Don't just fight needlessly just to fight, but fight so that you can get on the same page. Fight so that you can come to a resolution, a compromise of some sort where you're both happy in this thing. Because if you don't do that, there's no point in fighting. And it seems silly to even say that, but it's like, I know that there's people that are fighting just to fight. And man, cut that. Drop that this year, man. You and your wife, like, make an agreement together and hold each other accountable to that. To say, like, hey, when we fight, we are fighting in order to come to a resolution together. The third and final thing is this, man, and I already alluded to it a little bit earlier. but don't say anything that you'll regret saying. You know, that old, like, words are like toothpaste, you can't put them back in the tube. It's like, yo, words hurt, man. Like, you know, that old sticks and stones break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Like, that's bull, man. Like, a broken leg heals, a broken bone heals. But man, like, what you say can have devastating impacts. You know, it's like there's all sorts of studies that come back of, like, stuff that people heard as kids, and we talked about this a little bit in an episode with Nate about a month ago, but, like, stuff that you hear as kids starts to form a narrative in your mind. When you start hearing, like, oh, I'm clumsy, all your life as a kid, like, you just grow up thinking you're just clumsy. When you hear, like, I'm not smart, like, you just grow up and you just believe that you're not smart because every adult in your life told you you're not smart, right? And some people use that as motivation, but for a lot of people, that just holds us back, and we start believing this narrative. And so making sure when you have conflict with your spouse, especially with your spouse, making sure you don't say anything that you regret. I cannot overstate the importance of that. And that is why, like, when me and my wife have conflict, when we have arguments, it takes like hours to talk through these things. Because if we just responded right after each other, I know, at least for me, like, man, I have a temper. Like, I could get angry, I could get upset. And so, like, taking 3 or 4 minutes to, like, formulate my response to her ensures that what I say, I will not regret saying when this conversation is done. I want to make sure that even when we're fighting well, we're fighting fair, and that I am not hurting her, because she is not the enemy. She's not the enemy, and whatever conflict has arisen, whatever conflict we're going through, like, we got to figure that out, but she ain't the enemy. She's my partner. She's my best friend. She's my wife, man, and I would go to the grave defending her. But I'm not fighting her. And so I want to make sure that I don't say something that I regret. I ain't going to say this, that, or the other, or color this or that. Like, nah, man, I ain't got time for that. As you go, like, man, keep your temper on check. Keep your temper under control. Bite your tongue as much as you have to, and, like, everything you say should be true, but not everything that's true should be said, right? And so it's like, man, like, when you're about to say something, will this help us get to a resolution? Will this help us get to a place where we're standing shoulder to shoulder again instead of arguing face to face? You know, if it's not going to help us get to that outcome, it probably doesn't have to be said, right? And even if you're right about the thing, it might not need to be said, right? If it's not helpful, if it's not going to boost her morale, boost her confidence, man, like, your words have so much power over your wife. Probably more than any other human in the world, your words have power over your wife. They can influence your wife. They can impact her greatly. And so use those words to build her up instead of tear her down. Because the world is trying to tear us down, man. The world's trying to tear everybody down. And so we need to be able to use our words in a way that will encourage and edify each other and not tear each other down. And so that's it, man. And it's not, like I always say, man, it's not complicated. It's simple, but simple don't mean easy. Because when you get in the midst of conflict, when you start yelling at each other, man, it's hard to keep your cool. It's hard to keep your temper in check. But man, like, talk about these things with your wife. Like, listen to this episode with your wife together. Like, whatever you got to do, if you guys find yourself fighting all the time, like, go into it and say, like, all right, can we believe the best about each other? Can we argue so that we can come to a resolution instead of fighting just to fight? And can we vow to not say anything we regret to the other person? Can we do these 3 things moving forward as we have conflict? Can we hold each other accountable to this? And start in your marriage, man. And it's like, I think these are valuable things to incorporate into how you deal with conflict with everybody in your social circle, but especially, primarily with your wife, man. Like, your wife, if she's your best friend, man, if she's the love of your life, like, you want to honor her, you want to respect her, and you want to stand shoulder to shoulder with her, man. Like, you want her to be your number one fan, you want to be her number one encourager and supporter. You don't have to be fighting all the time, man. You can enjoy your marriage. You can enjoy your friendship. You can enjoy your love. You can enjoy all of those things without having to fight at each other all the time. It does take two. It takes both of you. But as the man of your household, as the husband, it is your job. It is your responsibility to step up and to lead, to get a vision of what your marriage could be. And I think a huge part of getting your marriage to a place where you're both happy in it is learning to fight well. Because you're going to have conflict. You're going to argue. You're going to disagree about things. But how you handle that could just determine the course of your marriage in all avenues. The drop this week is this. Have a conversation with your wife. If y'all are in a place where you're constantly fighting, you're constantly arguing, bickering, being at each other, sit down when there's not a present fight going on. Sit down, have a conversation, lay out the ground rules for how you fight. Lay out the ground rules and say, like, look, I know we're not agreeing on a lot lately, but I want to change the rules of how we engage in a fight. And lay these 3 things out. Say, I want to believe the best about each other. I want to fight in order to come to a resolution. I want to vow to never say anything that we regret. And if you have to add other things in there, add those in there too, man. But like, when you're not having a fight presently, when you're in a good spot, sit down, have this conversation, and say, like, hey, I want to fight fair. I want to fight well. I want to fight to come to a resolution. I want to believe the best about you. And I don't want to say anything to you that I'll regret. As a man, as the man of your house, lead out in this area. Because we're all going to have argument, we're all going to have conflict. But how we handle it can determine the course of our marriage. Hey, however you're watching or listening, give us a 5-star, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment and review. We really appreciate all the love and support you guys have been giving us as we're getting into the new year. As always, if you're not following us on Instagram, at Kicks and Minivans, and jump over on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got some new things coming up this year I'm super excited for. Can't wait to be with you with the next episode for our next guest. As always, take care of yourself, take care of your family.